positive, but there's an Arkansas law that says that the employees that don't want to be on direct deposit don't have to. I've still got 3 holdouts. We write 3 checks every 2 weeks, and everybody else is direct deposit.
You know, my dad's in the rice and grain market business. He still works. I don't know why. It's got something to do, but, he's been in the business forever. And he still has a bunch of farmers, so we'll just send him checks in the mail. And just like, why? Don't do that. Well, cause there was one, I go check your house, the mail, check from so and so. I'm like, why are they still doing it? There's gotta be a better way.
You are very welcome.
I didn't know that was on the books.
Explain that and I'll give one.
We'll not,
Yeah.
what I've done was white man today. I know that.
I'll catch it and I'll do what I want to.
Yeah, I didn't write it. I'm not mistaken, I remember you later, I'm going to be answering everybody that probably told you.
Yeah.
Work with you.
Okay.
He just says,
Well, I thought, because I keep up the list. I remember taking one.
Well, I didn't catch the other one. I mean,
Well, we show it. About if you deposit. So you did that.
I went back and thought, I'm gonna look. Good morning, y'all. Sorry,
I'm just showing.
Beasley, how are you, Scott? So you didn't think, yeah.
It was pretty terrible.
Well, I kept going, get out of my way.
Me too.
A lot of
Really? Yeah.
Like, you're getting out of the way.
I think that's the construction project that's going to.
Thank you for being with us.
Did everybody get water or coffee they want? A water?
Yeah, that is right. Thanks. Yeah, back up.
Yeah.
I got let it.
That's always good. All right, yeah. Oh, so much.
Oh,
That's okay, don't worry, I'll clean it.
yeah, I will tell you one thing.
Hey, Leslie and Ryan, show today, everybody.
I don't know.
Hello. Hello.
Gonna be here.
Yeah, Alexa, I won't have you.
Oh, she is. I didn't say you, you were split over here. You are in your spot.
Hanging out with Jimmy today.
Jimmy would like me to hang with you.
She's a brother and have a lot of.
I bet. So everybody signed their thing.
DR one.
We're supposed to pass these down.
Get that out of the way.
Alexis and she was in party.
There you go. Jim, we're going to pass that to the
You can see you.
Go grab it.
Slide it okay?
Yes,
Good.
we're all fine.
So are y'all okay from all the spring storms we had? Didn't get blown
I got
away?
swing on either side of things.
I thought I did.
I asked to the east and they said you can push me to the north. And just kind of went around it.
Jimmy, did anything happen to you yesterday?
Well, I'm pretty devil looking. My hair's a little gray.
No, you didn't. Just
I cannot believe that I made it self back.
when you
I was,
done.
back when I was young. You know, I think like everybody else when they were young. We were at supper. And gentleman stood up. And said, well, he said, I've known you all your life. He said, I never did it. 25, what's that say?
I know, that right.
Well, when did you turn? Yesterday. Oh, yeah, congratulations.
We got
Thank you.
a little birthday
Oh,
party.
yeah, so sweet. Y'all,
That's a special occasion.
Happy birthday.
Birthday, Jimmy.
Y'all, happy birthday, Jimmy. Thank y'all so much.
I'm not gonna tell you how old I'll be my next. Donate.
Well, I want to tell you, can I say something about Margie? I live up here in that, she was from back in County. But I worked for a guy, with a guy for 32 years. For a Hallville company. He was my boss.
Right.
But I was talking talking with Margie and I said, I said, this is better than that. You know? Lives over in Mexico, and I don't know.
She
I've
knows.
been looking for him for all these.
Margie.
Now,
Margie knows there.
the other half of it was I ran into him 2 days in a row at Walmart.
Oh, my goodness. See,
And
that
then
was,
he asked me about it, and he said, will you give me his, I said, you hold tight, I think I got it. I sure
isn't
did.
that great? What a great story.
He was a school board member.
It is a small world and it was a guy like 20 years ago.
But we had a good visit and I'm so appreciative of Margie.
I was very glad to do it.
Yes, we did. Thank you. Well, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. I'm gonna welcome Michael Lewis, who's with, our
Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
new person to help us, our new attorney, and Jeffrey, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, besides.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to you all, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
So I think we're gonna start the meeting as I call it to order, but we do need to have a roll call to say who's here, so it'll be easier for recording. Joy Blankenship,
Gerald Cyber. Michael Johnson. Scott Wood.
Jimmy Jones.
Alexis Devlin,
John Aquilino.
Margie Sexton,
Michael Moix.
what, we got him.
We got Michael.
Michael Lewis.
Daniel Pace.
All right, thank you all so much. That helps us with a recording and, when we make motions, if you all don't mind saying your name, that does help Alexis and it helps our recording. Saying your name, is that right? And for a second.
And I would like everyone to remember that when you're talking, make sure your voice is at a higher pace. And if you could slightly turn this way, so I can hear you a little bit better.
All right, well,
When
you
you're
did an
talking.
awesome job in the minutes, and that's what we're gonna do next, is to approve those, but we had a lengthy meeting with Scott. Were you on, I don't think you missed out on that one. We had a very long meeting.
Yeah, I think I was on the airplane with you all.
I think you were, but
Y'all were having a meeting.
I want to applaud Alexis for taking those because you got everything down. And I remembered like, oh my gosh, that happened and that one. Are you the lady? So
She takes the.
I thought you did, and I want to applaud you for that because that was not easy.
Timestamp on that meeting was 1 hour 49.
Yeah,
Almost 2 hours.
and we try not to keep you that long sometimes, but you know, there are things that will happen here and we'll be here longer sometimes if we really had something going on. So letting you know, that was a long one for us,
Yeah,
but
well,
we missed your presence.
We got grandson married off.
Well, that's great. That's great. I think, okay, now we've gotten that done. I want to approve the minutes that I was visiting about with you all about for Wednesday, the 27th of February, 2025. I need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for February 27th, 2025. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side. Y'all remember when y'all make a
I
motion?
did. I called myself.
Okay,
Michael Johnson.
we got it.
Jimmy Jones.
Okay. Reports. Okay, Daniel, do you want to talk about our summary of our revenue and expenditures?
Yes, ma'am. You'll notice, per your request that I
Yes.
moved it around.
Well, I just think it's easier for you to go over them because it's hard for us to look at those and we see them and we look
We'll
at
do the
them.
summary first, and then we'll do the approval.
That's right.
Better sequence.
That's right.
So, the first report you'll see there is just our, macro view, deposit list for all of fiscal year 2025. And you will see that as of April 7th, which is our last deposit reported here, we're at 416,1849 in revenue on the year. That's license and penalty revenue in total. We also did a deposit earlier this week that doesn't show up on here, so we're actually closer to, I think we're 419, and some change with this one. In reality, that one obviously we did a deposit. So
Our year is July 1 to June 30.
fiscal year, it starts July 1st and goes to June 30th. Yes, so that's how we do it. So that's the macro view. The next few charts here are Alexis's vehicle revenue charts to break it down, make it easier for you guys. So the first page is simply basically from the time of the last meeting to now in terms of revenue that we've received. That's what that is. And again, for your reference, you see that account GL number there, 403-201,000. That's our late fees and penalties revenue GL code. Within the 403-302-7,000, that's the license revenue code. So they break it down in license fees and then penalties. So they keep the difference. The next charts are your penalties revenue for all of fiscal year 2025 broken down. So we've had 20,412.50 in penalties and revenue and late fees so far this fiscal year. That we've collected. Again, ELP makes it a lot easier for us to collect penalties than it was in the past because we can do invoicing now. It goes directly to each account holder, so it makes it a lot simpler and easier for us to collect, and also for us to kind of pester people and keep calling and have them pay that. And then obviously the next page is again that 302-7,000. This is all our license revenue for the year. And that at this point is 396-382.50. It's actually closer to 400,000. If you include the one we did earlier this week, it's not showing up here. Have time to look at that. So that's where we're at on revenue. Your next breakdown is what we call the monthly Service Bureau report breakdown. And this is a detailed report I can run for you guys that shows all of our revenue for the year by month broken down and all of our expenditures by month broken down. And it also shows you our appropriation that the legislature approved for us for FY 2025. So you can see on that second page, the remaining appropriation we have month by month, but also where we're at this point. And it breaks it down by salaries, operating expenses, travel, personal service matching. So we're well within our appropriation on everything still. We have 2.5 months left in the fiscal year. So we're not gonna have any issues. We're not gonna have to go to the legislature and ask for additional appropriation. But that's a detailed breakdown for you guys to kind of understand how that tracks from month to month. We also have a detailed breakdown at the bottom of stipend salaries. And then if you go on further down, we have our expenditure breakdown. I wanted to include for you guys since we're getting closer to the end of the fiscal year, just to kind of show you how our expenditures break out for the year. And that includes your travel reimbursements as well. But some of the bigger ones that you'll note here, we find it, if you look at, where is it? We have John's laptop we purchased some here.
$10,000 software.
That $10,000 software is for ELP. So that's our annual fee for the licensing system. We pay once a year. There it is, complete computing, the first line item at the top. And if you go on over the second one, that's 2,145. You see there, that's John's new Service Pro laptop that we purchased. So that's what that fee charge is. The rest of the stuff is our DIS bills for email and phones, all the office supplies, the vehicle maintenance, Wex Bank, that's our Wex card for maintenance and gas for our investigators. And then of course our insurance breakdown. So this is all just, basically our yearly expenses, what we're doing. But again, in terms of our operating expenses, we still have almost 30,000 left in operating expenses for the year. So we're not going to come anywhere close. So, the second two reports here is just a monthly revenue summary for you that kind of breaks it down real simple on the revenue side of things, where we're at. And again, remember the revenue summary report. This is after that. If you go back and you look at the Service Bureau report, you see on that first page, remember we have that 1.5% special revenue fee that DFNA collects from us from our revenue. So you take that and then you go down to the revenue summary. Well, the revenue summary is the revenue after that 1.5% has been deducted from it. So that's why it's slightly different than what you see on the deposit. So that's after all that fee. And then you have your monthly expenditure summary by fund that just kind of shows you at a macro level where we're at this point in the middle of April. We still have almost 200,000 for total appropriation. So we are well on our way to finishing out another fiscal year with no issues. So we should, by my estimate, we have 2.5 months left. We should finish in terms of revenue between, I would say, 430 and 440, somewhere in that range, just based on we usually get some more end of the year license fees and we still have some late fees to pay. So we'll probably end up slightly over 430.
Right. Well, we can, we can vote out unless you all have any questions after looking over you did a great job of explaining it. Sometimes we tend not to look at all those fine little figures with your glasses on, but I think it's very important that we do that. So thank you for that. So do I have a motion for approval of our,
Scott Wood, I'm ready that we approve the financial revenue and expenditures.
Gerald Cyber, second.
it's been moved and seconded for approval of the revenue and expenditures. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, aye. Motion carried.
Ms. Gerald, I'd like to say that I've been here a long time and these reports,
Yeah,
the best that I
well,
we've had.
and easy for us to read, before we were like, what, just to prove sometimes. We look at them, but it's like, oh, so that's great.
Well,
Thank you to Mr. Alexis for doing that. Thank you for whoever did that. Very helpful.
Alexis and I work on those.
Both of you, very helpful.
We appreciate that, and she's very helpful with that.
As you know, I looked at mine, so
Oh, yeah, yeah, you call
I called.
them. So, no, but we want you to look at them, that's what we do. If you ever have a question about anything, just give me a call, I don't have to explain too much anything, we're fully transparent. So, but we're in a good spot, compared to some agencies.
Okay, so moving on to the monthly license activity report and all the rest of the reports that we have.
Yes, so monthly license activity, and I will give Alexis full credit for this because it's all her. She puts together these wonderful condensed reports for you guys, because obviously we have a lot of licenses that we issue, so it can be hard to quantify that in some respects. ELP and our new reporting system, our tier reporting system we have that works with ELP makes it a lot easier for us to kind of condense this information into a digestible format for you. So this first page is simply the submission dashboard. So this is basically it's broken down by license type for you, and it's going to give you a full picture of all license type submissions for basically the full fiscal year. That's at the top, starting at July 1st of last year to April 10th. And then the bottom one is, I believe, from February 1st to now. So that's just kind of the last couple of months. And again, the submission count is the key there in terms of the total license numbers. And as I've told you before, some of these can be a little misleading with respect to somebody could have multiple projections and submissions on the same license. So remember that. But this is a breakdown of all. You will also see, I will note here, remember last time Scott wasn't here, so I'll touch on this briefly. We'll see we have 2 out-of-state temporary permits listed on this report that were submitted. So that is for the Greg Orr stores in Texarkana, right, Alexis, that participated in a off-premise sale down in that area. It was in the rodeo, four states rodeo that they participate in every year. So
it's in Arkansas, and they have to give a permit.
we have, so this is something, this is something you missed out on last time, Scott, but we have it in our statute and rule that an out-of-state dealer can pay $100 one-time fee and participate in a sanctioned off-premise sale or show for 7 days. Yeah. And that paid $100. So this is just showing that we finally were able, we touched on it last time, able to get the out-of-state permit in ELP. So now people can apply in ELP, we can track it in ELP, so we don't have to, because before we were having to issue paper certificates.
And
Yeah.
pretty much all the auto dealers in Texarkana are in Texas.
Yes,
Not at Arkansas.
Gregor, that's where Gregor's corporate office is, and that's where pretty much all of it.
So anytime they want to come into the state or something, they have to do one of these out of state. Temporary permits.
Yeah, and it's only good for 7 days, it expires after 7 days. So. All right, that's the macro level report, and then what we have next is, and Joyce sees all these memos, because she's the chair, so she's included on all of these, but these are our license activity memos that we send out for any new license or any major license change that we have in the system. We send these out to Joy, we send them out to DFNA for their tracking for dealer tags in their system, and a few other people that have requested to be included on this, including the ABA. So the first one here, Everett Infinity of Northwest Arkansas. This is a new license that we issued to Everett Group in Rogers in Benton County, where they opened a brand new Infinity store up there. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, isn't this right next to the VW store?
Yes.
Okay, because John visited, and John said this is a really nice store. Very,
Very elegant place.
So Mr. Everett opened a new store in Rogers, and I think he also has the Infinity store here in Central too. So that is the next one here, Lone Star Golf Cars. So this says North Little Rock, and it is technically in North Little Rock, but it's really in Maumelle. I mean, if you go drive out there, it's in that area where it's kind of North Little Rock technically, but it's really in Maumelle. So still in Pulaski County, Mr. Ellis's, this is purely for them to sell at this point, just Evolution LSVs. So it's the low speed vehicles. And these guys, I think, are in Florida, right? They own this. It's kind of a franchise thing, but they're in Maumelle, so we've licensed them to sell LSVs recently. Again, this was an interesting one because I think we discovered them we happened to cross their website or something and discovered they were selling LSVs. So we had to go have a dealer visit, but they're good. They've got a license when we asked them to, so no issues there. The next one, Campbell Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. So this is Mr. Heath Campbell. He's the 100% owner of this. He bought this store from Riser, from Mr. Paul Riser. It used to be Riser, Chrysler, Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, and Hot Springs. So now that it's transitioned over, now he owns it. It's renamed it. He's the 100% owner. I think Mr. Riser just owns one store now, right? In Hot Springs, Riser Ford. So that is a recent purchase here in the last month. And he's now the 100% owner of that store. So we had to issue them a new license for that store because the ownership did change and the business structure changed and the name changed. Next, we have Stribling Equipment. Okay, this is a John Deere, their commercial side of things, forestry, and the commercial side of things. So John Deere has changed tack recently and decided that they want other people to sell the Gators, namely Stribling Equipment, because I'm sure some of you are familiar with Greenway Equipment. They've been around forever. They have, for as long as I can remember, been the signature John Deere Gator dealer kind of in this area. Now, we do have some other ones in Northwest Arkansas and other parts of the state that sell John Deere Gators, but mainly it's Greenway. But I had Alexis include the letters from both Greenway's CEO and from John Deere and from Stribling Equipment, kind of explaining this whole situation for you guys to look at and see what we have to kind of work out sometimes as a commission. So Greenway has a store, what, 4 miles from this Stribling Equipment store, something like that?
Did they that?
Yeah, so it's literally right next door. So obviously Greenway has to approve for Stribling to do this. And obviously they both have a long-standing relationship with John Deere, so I didn't think it would be a problem for you to kind of work it out. But originally, all we got was this letter from John Deere explaining that, oh, well, we got Mr. Midkiff to sign this and he's okay with it. Well, okay, but I need something from Mr. Midkiff on his letterhead saying he's okay with it before, not just to prove that, because that's just to say that he signed it. So anyways, long story short, we all got it worked out. There was something in Stribling's sales and service agreement that notated that John Deere authorized them to sell Gators at all their stores, which we followed up on, and no, at this point, Stribling is just going to be selling. So, because if they want to sell at the other stores, obviously they would have to do a separate license for each one of those, and there's going to be some conflicts with Greenway and some 2 or 3 other dealers that are already selling Gators. So that's other stuff we'd have to work out. if they decide to do that, but for now, they put in this letter that they're only selling.
So this means that both Greenway and Stribling will be selling, okay,
Yes,
and they're even,
but Stribling just at the Willows.
okay, and Greenway's good with it, so.
They said they wrote a letter and said they were okay with it. So in that case, we can sign off on it and say, because they're basically, once they do that, they're basically waiving their right to protest under the section. So we have it in writing, and that's always been good enough to finish. So the next one, Dalton RV, Mr. Levi and Margie and John both, I think, did a visit for him, and he's got a nice little store up there in Morrilton. We approved him as an RV commercial truck dealer, and he's just selling two lines, I think, at this point, just Jayco and Forest River Shasta. Margie, he did say in a couple months, he's gonna be moving. So he's gonna be moving location to Plumerville.
Plummerville, which is
So-
not.
I think it's still in Conway County, right? So he won't have to change.
Hey,
Is it?
Dan- Hey, Daniel,
Yes, sir.
No, but
on the Dalton RV one, I was just noticing that's got Jayco RV listed as a license, as what he's licensing. He's actually selling Starcraft RV, and Starcraft is a own derivative of Jayco, but it's not Jayco. Jayco is a different license. I mean, Jayco is a different brand. So I don't know if that's something that we are to look into. I know the Jayco brand is licensed to Jayco of Little Rock. But he's actually selling Starcraft. And again, Jayco owns Starcraft. So it may just be a typo on the license. I don't know, but I don't know if that's something we should look at or not.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. No, that's a good distinction. We'll look at that. My understanding from looking at his agreement is that his area is only for Conway County.
Yeah.
So he can't go outside of Conway County.
And again, I think he's selling StarCraft, which is no problem. Nobody else in the area has got StarCraft. It's just, it might, and again, Jayco owns StarCraft. So just somebody might want to look at that.
Okay, that's a good point, Michael, and I appreciate that. And that's why we have RV as remote commission, because he recognizes those things. Okay,
Hey, Michael, is Plummerville, that's not Faulkner, is it?
I don't think so. I think Plumerville is in Conway County. I would not swear to that, but I think it is in Conway County.
he is moving further east
yes.
toward Conway.
Yeah, I think it's like, he said, what did he say, 3 or?
3 or 5 miles
Yeah.
there. It's not far from
Yeah.
okay.
I think he's getting a new building.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, we'll follow up on that. Thank you, Michael. Alexis will figure that out. But we'll make sure it's correct on his license if he sent us the wrong. So. All right, the next one is Everett Kia. Okay, and so this is an interesting one, and this goes in line with the one on the next page. So Mr. Everett and he and I talked about this a month or two ago, so I knew this was coming, but he purchased the Kia franchise from Mark Martin Ford Kia in Batesville, which is Scottsdale. So, and you'll see on the next page there, Mark Martin Ford is still keeping their license. Okay, they're still selling Ford, but they're dropping the Kia completely. And what's happening here is interesting. So Mr. Everett is going to be operating and I think leasing out this building for a while here in Batesville. But the plan is he's actually building a new store in Searcy. And he's going to move the Kia store to Searcy. So eventually he will have to come back to us and get a different license for the Searcy store because it's in a different county. So
That's what I understand. But
Yeah.
And all that is word on the street, but since we're across the street from each other, they've already changed the sign there on Kia building. It says Everett now instead of
good,
Mark Martin.
good. Well,
We heard that they were gonna move it.
Well, I've talked to Mr. Wood, and that's what they're gonna do. They will be going to Searcy whenever they get the new building built, so they're working on that. And that is the long-term plan, and that's not an issue because there's not any Kia dealers anywhere close to Searcy. The closest one is in local route. So that's Mr. Everett, that Everett Kia store there is in Batesville for the time being. We approved the license for them there just to sell Kia. And then the next page there is just notating that Mark Martin Ford is still in business under their current license. We just removed Kia from their license, so they're just selling. Okay. Okay, the next one. So these are also interesting. Not something we see all the time, but it happens occasionally. Chris Crane, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, and Chris Crane Fiat. So what we have happened here is they have kept these same license numbers because all they're doing is changing the DBA name. Larry Crane Jr. was the majority owner in these stores under the previous, and the corporation name, right, Lexus, has not changed at all. They didn't change. Corporate name has not changed. All that's changing is the DBA name to Chris Crane. And essentially, you remember earlier, Keith Campbell's now the 100% owner of the Hot Springs store. Well, he basically sold out his part of this. Now Chris Crane is taking over as the minority owner, but Larry Crane Jr. is still the majority owner of both of these stores. So because of that, because Larry Crane Jr. is still the majority owner, we don't have to change the license because he's still technically the majority owner. So kind of a unique situation, but both of those stores have been rebranded and renamed to Chris Crane, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, and Chris Crane Fiat. And those are both business stores in Saline County. And they used to be the Campbell Chrysler Dodge stores. So he no longer is associated with these stores.
So I noticed Fiat is in the name of both stores, which is kind of strange. And it all used to be together in one building, but I guess they built a separate building for the Fiat or.
I think it's all in that same address, the same location, but they've always had two separate license lines. And I think it has something to do with their agreement.
If I'm not mistaken, Stellantis has two portions of it, and one of those is on the Fiat and some other stuff, and then the other is the Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
Okay.
So they have two licenses just for their contract.
Yeah, so that's that, but yeah, again, keeping the same license number. Now, if Larry Crane Jr. ever decides to sell out his majority ownership, then we would have to have a different discussion about licensing. But that's
What
what,
is that, what is this dealer number? Is it
that's the dealer number,
the license?
F-1220 and F-1223. So those are license numbers that carried over from the whole database.
Okay,
Because remember, that's a good point of reference, Mr. Joy.
yeah,
The old database license numbers, if you were licensed in the old database, you carried over your old number to the new system. We only issue the new numbers
when they do new.
when you have a new license.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
And this letter behind that there just kind of explains the breakdown of ownership for you guys. So I wanted to include that just to explain kind of what they do. That gives you kind of before it. The next one is Send It Off Road. This is up in John's neck of the woods in Harrison. He did the site visit here. And this is a gentleman, Mr. Keiser, who is just selling Segway UTVs at this point, right, John? And I think we have another product he wants to sell, and we're trying to figure out if he can, if that distributor is licensed or if that distributor needs to get a license. So we're working on that, but he does have a license to sell Segway UTVs. I think the closest Segway dealer to him we determined was in Rogers or Bentonville. It's a good hop from where he's at. So he's in good shape. That's all the new licenses since the last meeting, which is quite a few changes there. We just had in February, so we've been pretty busy with those. On to dealer and lessor license renewals. This is Alexis's full report for dealer and lessor license renewals for this year. And remember, if it's in white, that means that they have renewed and they are currently active. If it's highlighted in some way, that means they either haven't submitted at all, or they have a submission and we still have some documents or they need to resubmit it. So pretty much we have got this nailed down. You will see Moped U on here.
If you want to notate at the end, purple is for no submission. However, Moped you had submitted, but they also have not been rejected. We're waiting a document from them, so it's
Insurance.
kind of in limbo.
Yeah, they gotta get their insurance. Superpower Sports also has submitted as of Monday. So he has submitted finally, and he will have late fees he has to pay. And then Wyvern Gray TV, we have to get them to resubmit. But those are the only cycle dealers left that we kind of have to finish up, I believe, on the renewals. They're not a cycle dealer. And then we have Superior RV Sales. Margie has talked to this gentleman several times, and he's supposed to be working on it, but he hasn't submitted it all. He is still in business. He needs to renew. At this point, he's gonna have how many months of late fees? Three months of late fees when he does submit. Now, the last one you see there that's still highlighted, Ideal RV Center, that's Mr. Gibson. I have talked to him, Alexis has talked to him, John has talked to him. It is my understanding that he, based on my conversation with him, he doesn't need a license from us anymore. We're just trying to get him to surrender his license. He got a used car dealer license, I think. Yes, sir. To sell his used stuff, but what he is selling at this point does not require a license from us. That's the best way I know to put it. He's selling those camper, you know,
The things
the
you put on.
things you
the
put on a
bed.
truck
the
bed,
top.
the camper top, it's not an art.
He just needs to.
Not even a sliding camper,
No, it's just those
shells.
shell, basically, yeah, so. And that is it for the license renewal, so we have pretty much, with just a few left, have gotten all of those wrapped up, so we just have a few stragglers to get done, and we will be done with those. And Alexis and Margie have done great work with me in the office to stay on people. We always have 20 to 30 every year that wait until the last minute, and then we have to kind of, you know, just stay on until they do it. The next list is just our list of manufacturing distributors that still have an expired license in the system. Again, I know we've talked to several of these, some of these are out of business. Start Future USA, we have talked to that guy several times, and he keeps telling us he's gonna renew, but then he doesn't, so. I don't know what's gonna happen with him, but he keeps telling us he's gonna do it.
What does he sell?
RV, is it RVs, or is it commercial trucks? I can't remember.
Commercial truck.
Yeah. Anyways, whenever he does renew, he's gonna have a lot of, so let's just put it that way. So it's gonna be hectic, but he keeps telling us he's planning on it. The rest of these folks, I think we're either working on getting surrenders from, or they are just have dropped off the face of the earth, in which case we probably won't be able to get a surrender from. So, but that's it from the renewal period, for last year in terms of manufacturing distributors that still have an expired license in the system. Everybody else is current. And then the last list here for licensing is the voluntary license surrender agreement list. So this is all that we have left from the 24 and 25 list at this point that we still are trying to get a surrender agreement. So you guys remember earlier last year how long that list was. We've got it knocked down all the way to single digits. So we've just got a few left we've got to track down. And again, a couple of these, you may not be able to get them. I don't know. It just depends on if we can find them or not. So
Our 225 numbers up there at the top, CF Moto Power Sports, they went out of business, but before they closed everything, someone decided to buy. So I've been trying to get in contact.
See if photos, that's a distributor license. I think they're the one. Are you thinking of the other one? The CF Motos.
They sell ATV.
Yeah.
I sell those.
See, I think CF Moto, this is the one where they had the wrong license and they came back and got the correct license, and this is their license that they're surrendering.
I'm sorry, I'm at El Dorado National.
Yeah.
El Dorado National, which was the last surrender I did before the end of fiscal year last year. That's why it's the final one. I have been in contact with their licensing supervisor. She was a third part, she worked for a third party company, so I could still call her whenever. But she had contacted the owners quite a few times to try to get them to sign something. But originally, they were just gonna close the business, and then another company bought it. So I did inform her to let them know that since technically they kept the name and everything of the company, I kind of would like, before they start to apply for another license here in the state, for them to figure this one out first. And then CF Moto, they didn't need a manufacturer license, they need a distributor license. And so we have their contact, we just haven't gotten that form back. And then Northeast Farm and Lawn, I spoke to him yesterday. And that is probably in my email last week, because I would imagine he probably sent it after the meeting started.
Oh, yeah.
So we really knocked down this, so we're almost, we hopefully we can finally wrap up all of it. That's it for the licensing. Anybody have any questions before we move on? Investigation.
Anybody?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Back to the manufacturers and distributors expired license. On this top group, does that probably mean that they don't have, retail representative in our state?
Yeah, they don't.
And that's why they would need the manufacturer license for Arkansas.
They don't have a rep, and I don't think they have dealers.
Yes. Okay, that's what I thought. I used to get horse trader business and shadow traders, I know. It's a place in North Mississippi, kind of in Memphis area.
Fancy horse trade, the fancy.
Yeah. They probably don't. So these folks just don't have any horse in Arkansas.
I believe their last dealer, they had it in March or May of last year.
That stuff moves.
Any other questions before we move on?
I think we're all.
That brings us to the investigation reports from my investigators, and I'll just kind of let them briefly give you the little summary here. And I will say that it's not on this list because we just got it yesterday, but we have an interesting one that Margie and John are going to have to address today after this meeting. They got to go up to, I won't say who it is because it's an active dealer with license, but they got to go up to Denzark and do a little investigation.
You know, your phone can
And-
Google it. No.
Well,
You just let that.
I'll just-
I'm kidding.
we gotta do some education. He's a newer dealer and we have someone who's trying to sell at a location. That's just a setback. So we gotta
Okay.
address that. So that'll be fun for Mark and John. Yeah. We got video and everything. So
Oh, my.
go ahead, Mark.
Between February the 13th and April the 9th, I conducted 30 total investigations. I have 9 currently open, well, there's some closed, since this report. And then, but I closed 21 during that couple, 2 months. And then and John and I went out and did some site visits, including getting new dealers to apply for a license, which they have. And I conducted some dealer visits while I was like in Stuttgart and different places. So, let's see, y'all have any questions?
John?
All right, I had 17 total investigations, 8 that were open and 9 that are closed, and I've closed a couple more since this report and received a couple more since this report. Margie and I have been to Boralton, we've been to Hot Springs. We went to West Memphis and Marion. I've been to Rogers, Bentonville, and Mountain Home, and we're going to Desert when we're done today. So we've been all over this state.
Been to Hot Springs several times. We
Yes.
Get into here.
Yes.
Numerous times.
Hot Springs, just watch you guys.
So we have been spending a lot of time on the road, plus taking care of our investigations. So what a wonderful way to see the state of Arkansas.
Well, and they close out a lot of complaints, you'll notice, because we get a lot of complaints. We'll get into the complaint list here in a second, but you'll see that non-formal wise, we're already almost at 50 complaints on the year. We're not even at 8. So,
I got a call yesterday, I was really on stuff here, with you, but I mean, they know they look on the thing, y'all might even do that too, as a consumer, I get. And I always direct those,
check with us.
y'all, I mean, I'm like, I can't help you. there's something on the website, y'all can fill out. and do.
John and Marty do great work and
Y'all do.
you'll see more of that.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do, because you stop a lot of things that we don't have to deal with. And we appreciate that.
And, one of their investigations is gonna get a special, notice here in a minute, so we'll talk about that. That's later. Yeah, on the agenda. So the next, reports here is your consumer assistance complaint reports. So this is gonna include, 2025 formal and non-formal complaints that we've gotten so far, and also the 2024 formal complaints. I didn't put the 2024 non-formal in there because pretty much John and Margie have gotten all of those closed out, with the exception of maybe one. I mean, so there's no point for that. They've closed out all the 2024 non-formals at this point. So you'll see on the formal list so far this year, 25, we're already up to 7. Is it actually, no, it's 8 because we got another one this week that I haven't even had time to read yet. So we're actually up to 8 formal complaints of the year so far. The one we got yesterday is actually from a dealer against a manufacturer, so that'll be an interesting one. But we're actually on 8 formal complaints of the year. And you will see that of these 7 on this list, we already have basically almost all of them closed out. I think Ms. Collins, we're close to getting closed out, right, Margie? Where we have to get some follow-up from her. And
Yes.
then we have one that's pending ad hoc, which, Mr. Brady, Michael and I and Joy will have to deal with that one whenever we have time to have another ad hoc meeting. But that one is, the investigation side of things is finished, so. They've been doing great work on the formal complaints this year, so we're well on track with those. Your non-formal complaints are next on 25. You'll see they've been closing out a lot of those as well. I will note, this list ends at 44. I believe we are now at 48. So we're actually almost at 50 already on the year on non-formal lists, because we've had 3 or 4 more just in the last week that have been added to this list since then, including the one that Margie and John have to investigate today. So, we are well on our way to getting well over 100 non-formal complaints before the year is out. So, if we keep up at this pace, we'll end up with over 120. So, but Margie and John, again, they do a great job of working on these and getting these closed out as quick as possible. I see several on this list that are actually closed. I think they just haven't been closed on this list because the list was put together last week and sent out to you guys. So, even on this list, there are some that have been closed that are showing up. So, they've been doing great work on that. And again, remember the non-formal complaints, that's our kind of catch-all, for pretty much anything that comes up. If we get a call, if we get an email, or in the case of yesterday, we got a phone call and a video sent to us that we need to investigate. Or it could be an advertising issue, or it could just be, something that Margie and John see when they're out doing their dealer visits or site visits. They can see something that we need to look into. So that's our non-formal. And then you have your 2025 ad review list. I think Margie and John just completed another one yesterday. It's also not on this list. So there's actually one more on that list that they've done. And the last one there is just all of our 2024 formal complaints. I included that because we have a couple at the end of the list that we still have to get closed out. One of them we're dealing with today slightly. Another one is Central Arkansas, Mahindra, and Argo. So that one, I believe we finally have resolved. John, do you want to touch on that briefly?
Sure. This was a dispute between Central Arkansas, Mahindra, and Argo. And it had to do with, they wanted to terminate their service and sales agreement with Argo. They had 2022 year model ATVs and UTVs, and they had some 23s and some 24s. Argo, under the statute, was correct and refused to purchase the 2022 units back. The 2023s and 2024s, they sent an inspector down. There was damage on all of those units, with the exception of one that was still in the crate. They agreed to purchase the one in the crate, repurchase the one in the crate, repurchase all the parts and special tools. Then they had a couple of proposals back and forth. Long story short, Argo agreed to repurchase the 23s and 24s that had damage at a 20% discount. But they will not repurchase the 2022 models because it's outside the
And
statute.
this was agreed upon by
Yes.
council for both parties.
And so they've agreed upon it and they're facilitating the buyback as we speak. And they're supposed to let us know when everything is taken care of and been completed. So we're glad that we could get this one resolved. At first, we didn't think that this was really gonna go anywhere, but
At first, we thought we were gonna have to bring it to you guys.
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
resolve.
that usually too.
it turned out, for the best for both parties. I think Central Arkansas, yeah, they're gonna lose a little bit, but at first, they weren't gonna buy any of the 23s and 24s back because they had damage. And according to our statute, if they're damaged, then they're not required to repurchase those.
Remember, the statute is current model year and previous model year. That's all it says.
And so
It goes by model.
Central Arkansas Mahindra, proposed a 15% discount for the buybacks on the 23s and 24s. And Argo graciously came back with the 20%. So it kind of worked out pretty good.
Mr. McKean, who's general counsel, I think, for Argo USA, was very helpful and very, they were gracious.
Very good.
So, I think we will be able to close that out fairly soon once we have confirmation that both sides have agreed and that they're good with the final resolution. And we won't have to bring that to you guys, hopefully.
I'm with you.
I think we're about done with that, so. But yeah, does anybody have any questions on any of the other complaints, 25 or the 24s? That I can address, and happy to answer anything that you see. It is a story concern to you, but that's good.
This kind of sort of has to do with Argo, but I'm just curious. It says current model year or previous, and this started in 24, so that was the current model year. 25s usually come out in the fall of 24, for instance. So how does that work?
The way I read the statute, it's whenever they initiate the termination proceedings under the agreement, so they initiated it in
June.
June of
June
24.
24.
Yeah, so
Yeah, this said 12, 13, and 24. That's why I was asking, because
that's when they filed it.
obviously
That's
it's
when we got
25.
Yeah, that's when we got it.
Yeah, they had been working.
They initiated the action
Yes.
earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So that's the way that works.
Right.
Whatever the current model year is, time that they initiated the action.
Yeah.
Argo's actually ceasing production of 2025s, except for whatever's been ordered.
Yeah, I know, we're actually, in the automotive world, starting to order these.
Pretty good.
Yeah, just a few, but it's already happened. We won't receive them probably till late summer. But we're talking 26 models. Yeah, already.
But John worked really hard on this one, and Mr. King was very gracious and was willing to try to resolve this. We appreciate him for that. Because I will say, I mean, the statute says what it says, but John and Marty know, I mean, there are times with certain distributors where we have to kind of lean on them a little bit because they want to try to wiggle out of it.
So say as much as possible.
So that's what the commission is here. Does anybody else have any questions for anyone before we go on to Mr. Lewis's spotlight part of the proceeding? Nope, not good questions. We're ready to move to.
Thank you for allowing us to see that, and good job, everybody, for that. Hey, Michael, legal briefing time for you, and Daniel.
Okay, thank you. There's one matter for me to bring to the commission's attention for y'all to make a decision on. And that is complaint number 24027. And essentially, the facts for y'all are that there is a dispute between the manufacturer and the dealer regarding the sale of the dealership. This originated via a complaint from the dealer. the ad hoc, group met, and it was the recommendation of that meeting, this be referred to the full commission for them to make a determination whether this should be set for a hearing. It's also my understanding that it's the recommendation that it's set for, that's accurate. That's the recommendation. That is the recommendation. I realize I've kind of been intentionally vague about this, but as y'all know, I don't want to prejudice the commission should this end up in a hearing. And so with that, if there are any questions I could answer, I'd be happy to try to, but it is, as I said, it's the recommendation. This will be set for a hearing. What we would need from y'all is a motion to set this matter for a hearing, and then we would need to determine when that would need to be set.
I think, can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, when Michael says, is our recommendation, it is mine and Joy and Michael, that our committee recommendation, we looked at all the facts and we discussed it, and we think it merits a hearing. That's why we're recommending. If you do that, so. You need a motion? Yes. Michael Johnson, motion for a meeting.
Can we amend that motion to set this for a formal hearing?
Yeah. Correction, set it for a formal hearing before the Motor Vehicle Commission.
Gerald Sager, I'm saying.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the ad hoc funds for a hearing. Gentry versus General Motors. That's it, okay. Are there any other discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and I assume we need to figure out when it will be set.
That was Michael Johnson and Mr. Sager, right? Yes.
Okay. So the next matter, we think that it could be about, we're anticipating about a day-long hearing. So not able to, at least, so we don't believe it will be able to be set on your standard board meeting. What Daniel and I had talked about was trying to do it immediately the day after following y'all's board meeting. And the date we've looked at is July 17th, but obviously we want to make sure we have our people available, so we can do it. And so if y'all are able to see if that date is available, we can work on getting a hearing notice to set it for that date.
Yeah, because our regular scheduled meeting in July will be the 16th, so the 17th will be the following. But we're trying to, Michael and I talked about this yesterday, because it's always, we have to make sure we have enough people that actually have to be that you guys are available. So that's the thing we have to figure out before Michael and I then sit down and hash out the hearing notice and send it out to both parties, because we have to provide at least 30 days.
Yeah, and
notice, so.
And the facts of this one, we've actually extended, as you can tell, we extended it out past 30 days to allow for a little bit of due diligence on our part and kind of get everything in order before the hearing. We anticipate needing obviously more than 30 days. That's why we're looking for July.
Our regular commission meeting's on the 16th of July. And then we want to come back the following day, which is the 17th, and do the hearing on the Gentry Chevrolet General Motors issue.
That's correct.
And you feel that'll take all day?
Yes, sir.
If we have a hearing, definitely take all of it. Based on the issues that will be.
We're far enough ahead of time.
I don't have confidence.
Okay.
As far as I know.
I'm old school.
We're
ready calendar, it's in my truck.
Okay.
Out there in my briefcase.
You don't do that.
But I don't know that you can get your truck. Like it,
We'll all need
I
to
may
check
have
our
to talk
calendars.
with, Leader Pointer. Okay, I think it's that. It was 13, 14, 15, 16.
Is there a way we can just check and get back?
Yeah, what we can do is have everyone check independently, email Daniel, and then if y'all will give Daniel the permission to then schedule it, go ahead and get a vote to schedule it once he has essentially the dates from everybody. So we can go ahead, we don't have to get back together to take another vote on the date. We can go ahead and kind of grant him authority to set this once we get a consensus.
I'm pretty sure I can.
Okay.
You do or don't?
I do. I'm pretty sure I do.
Well, another alternative is possibly the day before the meeting.
Well, if you do it the day after, 2 days after the meeting,
My conflict is toy group starts on, I think, on July 13th. It runs through Wednesday, which means I will have to do this meeting remotely. Yeah, I think it'd be very difficult for me to do the 17th,
And so we know that's.
but I probably could.
Again, let's just kind of look at our calendars and I would kind of through the statute and to look, maybe figure some alternative dates.
I much prefer August. I think June would probably just seem for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that even if it was. So.
Yeah, we can try to call.
Yeah, the following week, would probably, I have this one travel conflict.
Yeah, because we're going to the beach.
We could look at August, we start to get into going back to school, and I'm worried that there may be some of the. Parties
We're
involved.
mostly old users, so we don't.
I was gonna say, look around, I don't think.
Another consideration.
Yeah.
Is this is one of those that's kind
This has
of
been,
time sensitive, like, we don't want to. Right.
July is already,
The week before,
that's,
July 7th through 11th. Would be wide open as far as I'm concerned. You want to move it up.
yeah, that's, and it doesn't have to be right then beside it, that was just for
In
convenience.
fact, for those of us who travel, it might be just as easy, since it may be easier on us to
Or, well, I-
have it on a different day from having to do it 2 days in a row, come here and go on.
No, we don't want to have it.
We
They're retired guys.
we don't do remote here.
This joy brings up a good point. This is
Yeah.
one where, especially this, we don't want to have.
Everybody, you know, that's why I need to be.
Yeah.
Well, then let's look at, see what availability everyone's got from the 7th and 11th, let's email,
Okay.
Daniel, and then let's have a vote to allow Daniel permission to finalize the date once, it's firmed up, and then we'll get here to say.
Okay.
I make a motion to let Daniel finalize the date for us, Michael Johnson.
Second, Scott Wood.
Moved and seconded, allow Daniel to set the date for after hearing from us.
Yeah.
I'll qualify that, hold up, I'll addendum to that, because he could set a date and we have not told him. Oh, sorry, we're not gonna do that,
Is it possible to put the week before, week after? And just see what the emails come back and everybody's free?
I'm pretty free that, I've already checked that month, and it's far enough out that.
A lot of the courts take recess that whole month.
Yeah, so that shouldn't be an issue.
they do, but we've got. I think we plan,
Yeah, well,
with beach
I had,
trips.
yeah,
Yeah,
July 13th through 16th.
yeah,
Um,
I'll explain it when we're.
I could skip it, but I've already promised to take my grandson.
I think y'all just check and then
You watching it in DC, we're gonna do all of it.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign.
It's 10.
And I have one more matter, tangentially related to this that I'd like to get permission from you all, request to vote on. Part of the statute allows the director to issue subpoenas should, the commission wish him to. I would ask that this commission vote to grant Daniel the permission to issue subpoenas regarding complaint number 24027, to help with the fact-finding process. At this point, we're not exactly sure what subpoenas we need to, so I would kind of ask for broad discretion to be granted to Daniel to issue those subpoenas.
I move that we, authorize Daniel to issue subpoenas in the matter of, case 24027, Scott Wood.
Michael Johnson, second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant our executive director Daniel Page to issue subpoenas on C number 24/027, Jeffrey First General License. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank y'all. That's all I have for my legal report. I think I may be talking a little bit more here in a second, but that's all for that.
We hope they don't have to issue subpoenas, but Michael and I feel like we may. So,
Very good.
so, all right. Thank
You
you.
picture a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not even GMD with it.
Don't tell her I said it when you used to.
We need to go to the next item, action discussion. More. It's on the next page.
Yep, the back page, yep.
So again,
This is me.
Me.
Yes,
all
ma'am.
right,
All right, this is, it's an interesting situation.
so this part of it.
There's no, so
I
on
didn't
this,
think there was.
on this,
Okay.
there's no supporting
Okay,
documentation or evidence
Okay.
yet because of what I'm about. I'm gonna talk about it and then the commission's gonna have to make a decision on how we want to handle it, basically, but I didn't want to provide you anything to look at, because I don't want to prejudice you
Okay.
if this comes to a hearing, basically. So, this is an instance, and this is what I was touching on earlier. Margie and John, and I'll ask them to speak briefly on this in a second, because they have interacted with this gentleman. Icon of Hot Springs, now Golf Cart Elite, I think is what he's calling his business. It started out as Icon, now it's Golf Cart Elite. Margie and John have done 2 separate visits to this gentleman's business and talked to him on 2 separate occasions since January, and I will let them touch on the details of that in a minute, without getting into too much detail. But essentially, Scotty Walbeck is the owner of this business, and he is selling LSVs. I think we have confirmed 4 different types of LSVs at this point. And he does not have a license. Never had a license with us. He is very much aware that he needs a license. As I said, Margie and John have been down there twice. Alexis has talked to him. Alexis has sent him all the information he needs to do it. I can confirm many times over. We have all that documented. I can confirm, because I checked again this morning before the meeting, he still has not submitted an application. We found out about him, in January of this year. So we've known about this and contacted him in January, so he's known about this since January. Still has not applied for a license. We're still trying to get him to apply for a license almost every day. He's very much aware of everything that is expected and required of him. He is also, and again, this, even the issue here is, even if we do get him to apply for a license, then we would still have an issue of him selling a product that he is not authorized to sell currently. Does not have a sales and service agreement to sell. And this company has told him to stop advertising and stop selling their products, and he still has them as of March. He has 4 of these units, Bentelli units.
That's 40.
4 Bentelli new units that he is not authorized to sell. So we still have that issue, which is even a separate issue for him just getting the license. So an authorized Bentelli dealer,
Specifically though.
even though he's not. So
Get the news.
Yeah.
that's a good question. Not from,
What I asked.
not from Bentelli, but we have confirmation from a third party, somebody in Texas. He won't tell us, a distributor, so, yes, but he didn't get it from Bentelli. So he's still selling those. He's changed his business name recently from Icon to Golf Cart Elite. Originally, when Margie and John visited him after that fact, I think he was it on the phone, talked to him, and he said he was gonna go out, he was selling his business. Well, that didn't happen, he just changed it. And he's still in the same spot, so he's still in business, he's still selling these things. And the bottom line is, he doesn't have a license, he needs a license, he knows he needs a license, we told him that. and so far has refused to give one. So we're kind of at an impasse. And beyond that, as I said, even if he gets a license, we still have the issue of him selling unauthorized units that he doesn't have an agreement to
Yes,
sell.
how would we as a commission
So-
revoke the license that
Well-
he doesn't have?
we're gonna get to some of that in a minute, but Margie and John, I want you guys to briefly, and Alexis already touched on, she sent him several times over all the application material he needs to apply. And she's talked to him on the phone about it and tried to walk him through the process, I think, and so has Margie, so we've gone above and beyond it. Margie, John, you guys have been there twice. I want you to just kind of briefly touch on those visits with them, just to kind of give an idea. You know, we don't have to go on a long spiel, since the commissioners don't have anything to look at, I just want them to have an idea of what we're doing here, since you've talked to him in person several times.
Our first initial visit to him was on January the 16th. We found out about him from someone else. And then we did talk to him about getting a license, and he was like, oh yeah, I'll get a license. And then we waited and waited, and here we are, April 1st, we went on a second visit. And here it is, what, 16? Still nothing.
There should be no question in his mind, because I looked him dead in the eye and told him that he has to have a license. Is there any part about that he doesn't understand? If he doesn't, he needs to ask the questions right there.
And you gave him a folder too.
We
We
gave
gave
you
him over,
over with the
yes.
statute and the rules and regulations, and tell you need to review this, you know, everything that's in there. And he said, oh, no, he does, I'm gonna work on it today. And that was April 1st.
Possibly get a VIN number off that thing and then call the manufacturer to see what dealer it was sold to, then go to that dealer. See if he's aware of what's going on or cares.
We would have to go back down there, yes, to get a big number off of one of those.
But the important part here is in terms of, he's selling Evolution, Icon, and
Roxy.
Roxy, which we don't license either, and that's another issue. And Vintelli, which he's not authorized to sell. Margie was able to get an email from Vintelli that they sent to him. Basically telling him, you're not an authorized dealer and you are not supposed to be marketing our products. We want you to stop marketing our products. And did it say quit selling, I believe as well?
It said, it did, and it used it, yeah, and it says if you want a license, please let us.
If you wanna sell,
Yeah,
if you wanna get a dealer. So we had confirmation that they're not doing them specifically. So
He's getting it from the dealer. He's getting it from the dealer, buying them and bringing them and sitting there selling them, is my assumption. That happens in the power sports all the time. But you go back to you get a VIN number on it. Go to the manufacturer, who was that sent to? Go to the dealer there. See if it's showing a sold or unsold unit. That'll give you a direction to go. If it's an unsold unit, that he is more than likely selling it, giving the name to register it in. He's trying to push it off as new.
He told us they were new.
Yeah.
Mhm. We do know that.
That gives a good idea. And obviously if we have this come before here and you guys. I wanted them to give you that brief. I can tell you, I haven't interacted with him personally, but John and Margie have, and based on what they told me, my impression is he's just not taking us seriously. So. Yeah.
Do LSVs have titles or MSOs? So you could, that's another way, that I don't know, you could demand to see them and you would comply. But there's another way, if they're titled, then they're used. Technically. And if they're still on MSOs, they should be considered.
Their sales tax to be collected on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's. Put the rest of the puzzle together somewhat to get the VIN number. I doubt if he would show you the MSO.
I would think because he's not a licensed dealer, that we couldn't see those. That's just me.
You get the VIN number off of it and go to the manufacturer. Who did this machine go to? Like, hey, what dealer that they shipped it to? The status of it, if it's sold, if it's a sold unit, unsold unit. And then that may give the motor vehicle commission a little bit longer to get one.
Sure. And John does raise a good point. He is unlicensed, so there is a limit to kind of some of the things we can ask you at this point. But I still have to say, I don't think he's taking it seriously, obviously, in 3 months. He's still hasn't applied for a license. I don't know if he's ever going to apply for a license. So we're kind of at an impasse with him. And we really just wanted to bring this to your attention so that we could get some direction, and I'll have Michael kind of touch on his thoughts on, because I know we talked about it, he might have some thoughts on in terms of what the statute says about penalties or potential actions with unlicensed folks. And I did include that in the packet in terms of the civil penalty statute for you to look at when it comes to unlicensed businesses. But I just kind of feel like we're at a point where we have to do something. And I don't know, you know, I leave it up to the commissioner. You have to discuss and decide who you want to, Michael can speak to on this, but we want to set it for a hearing. I mean, you know, do we want to have Michael and I try to talk to him? And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we tried to talk to him. I mean, I don't really know what else we can tell him. What can we do as far as like serve the papers on, just hang the papers and get it across through the legislature?
Well, one option is to go ahead and set it for a hearing. Based on 23-112-314, you are allowed to impose a civil penalty on non-licensees up to $1,000. That penalty is essentially based on each day of violation. So the penalty could get pretty extensive. I think that's one way to get his attention. It can always be set for a hearing. And so we have a date to work to, and if he wants to come to the table and start working with us in between then, that's always an option. That there's nothing to prohibit us from doing that. But we have a backstop that you're going to come here and talk with us about that on this day. Should he not show up after we get service, we can still move forward with the hearing, present the evidence, possibly have a penalty, and then we will have essentially a penalty that he will have hanging over his head, and down the road, it can actually be reduced to a judgment put on. So it's my thought that go ahead and set it for a hearing, and then we still work all these other avenues in the interim until we get to the hearing. But that's just my 2 cents on it. That way, we're not steadily leaving it out here for maybe we'll get somewhere, maybe we'll get some. I think once it gets a substantial penalty, I could be wrong, but that has a tendency to make people change their actions.
I like what you say. Well, the thing with this guy too is, Michael and I talked about this. Yeah, setting the hearing would probably, you know, would definitely get his attention. And not that they even have to come to the hearing, but the thing too is, even if we get him to apply, we still have these other issues that we would have to look into and work out. And as a commission, you know, if you read our licensing statute in terms of what's required on an application, there is a section in there that essentially allows the commission to ask further information, questions, if there is any doubt whatsoever about this applicant's effect on the public welfare, safeguarding the public. There is a section in there. So simply it allows us to continue asking the questions if there are concerns about even granting him the license, and that can be addressed in here. But
He had to apply for that, correct?
but he still hasn't applied for it. So yeah, I mean,
So he has a copy, given me one.
yes. And talked to him on the phone about it, and
And we've said that.
yes, sir.
Scott Wood, I move that we ask Daniel Pace to set this for a hearing.
I'll second that, Michael Johnson.
Been moved and seconded that we approach Icons, Hot Springs golf cart or a link, but if we recall, is that this into motion, hearing to, get this one.
Michael, let me ask you this, if the individual bought that from a dealer, put it in his name, I'm just scenario, brought it back here, it's actually a used vehicle there, because he's a retail purchaser, he's trying to flip it, but he's saying that it's new, it's got warranty. Where does that put the commission, maybe?
I would need to research that, and it's possible he could lay that out as defense. However, if he doesn't come to the table, present that set of facts, I don't think it's something that should take into account at this time. But it is a scenario that we will look into should it arise.
We also have definition statute in terms of, with respect to what you're talking about, the title, to prevent dealers from doing kind of what you're talking about. There's actually language in there that talks about ultimate purchaser and how we define that. And essentially, you know, the vehicle has to be placed in actual operation for it to be considered used. So a wholesaler can't sell it to another dealer, because we've had this issue come up with some other dealers in the past. We've had the rest of them. You can't go buy it from a new one from a wholesaler and then turn around and be able to sell it to these vehicles that have been placed in operation. So we have language in our statute that addresses that.
One key factor, he knows the statutes, this one there, I do, but they're advertising themselves as an authorized dealer.
The hearing, we'd be within our bounds to bring that up.
Yes, that would be part of that. I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but that would likely be part of that.
He is an authorized dealer for some of the stuff he sells, but not for the Vinatellis. Is that what?
Right.
We don't know if he's on state agreement.
Okay.
Have we been able to get an agreement with anything? Has he still said anything?
Not anyone that is licensed.
Okay, so he might be just out there on all of it.
So I'm assuming.
We have a motion on.
Well, I was gonna say something for you.
This time.
On the date, are you guys good with whatever Michael and I decide on the date on this? I mean,
I think this could be done.
yeah, I think so too.
The working draw is third Wednesday.
But I would go on and do this one.
So that would likely be, because of time, that would likely be like June, probably.
June. Yeah. Good June. We gotta get a late date.
Anybody want to call for the question?
Well, the May meeting, I know I'll be doing remote.
Oh, wow.
As long as you can be here, we got to approve those grants. We still have.
Call for the question?
Yeah, we had the motion in it.
Yeah, we need to vote
Yep, we vote. All those in favor say aye.
on it. Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So I'll back that a little bit. Now, I think the dealer who sold it, you know, is that fall too. So anyway, always need to ask.
Within Arkansas, that gives us a little, but if it's a Texas dealer, for
Yeah.
instance, or something,
We don't have a,
we don't have really good
We don't.
jurisdiction. do we?
we don't.
No, and that's what I suspect, but the investigators can do some more digging and see if they can do that. There, we'll have.
But I'm gonna let review. We need to get the bid.
How old an individual is this?
He's probably in his late forties, early fifties.
All right, well, we'll see what happens and we will alert you all about it. Okay, we're on, the voluntary license surrender agreement list. You all been given, the surrender notice for two of them. It's
Just to.
more than this, so, any discussion about any of these?
Heritage Equipment was the Polaris dealer in South Arkansas. That is now C2 Power Force. He bought out this gentleman. His Polaris, which is no longer going to be soccer dealer. So That's why he's surrendering, because he no longer sells that stuff. And then Riser, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat is Mr. Riser's store that he just sold. He does.
Is C2, are they in Nashville or Hope?
Oh, yeah. Parrish is back over there. C2 is in Hope. That's where Jackson's store is.
I need to entertain a motion for approval of the voluntary license surrender of, number one, number two, Parish Equipment Advisor, Chrysler Dodge, Jeep Ram Fiat.
Michael Johnson, motion to accept.
Jimmy Jones, second.
Moved and seconded to approve the voluntary license surrender of Parish Equipment and Sales Advisor, Chrysler Dodge Jeep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, automotive technological education grant program, fiscal year 2025.
Yes, ma'am. So this, I had Alexis put this together. So obviously the deadline, as you guys set, was for March 31st. So we had 13 applications that got their applications turned in this year. So I wanted to provide that list for you in terms, and also the max amount that they requested for each one. Now, some of these, you dive into the application, they have like tiered amounts. Some of them ask for less if they can't get the maximum. So this is the maximum for each one. I did the math the other day for these, and I think it adds up to around $288,000 total. So, in terms of the full requested amount, we do have some new ones in here this year: North Career, Central Career Center, ASU Three Rivers Career Center, Rich Mountain over there, and is that Mena? Is that where that is? ASU BB Search Campus. So we had some new ones along with people that generally apply. I've still got to go to the parties that be in the 3 separate agencies and have a meeting here in the next couple of weeks to get their recommendations to get back to you guys at the May meeting. So I just wanted you to be aware of kind of the baseline requests that we have. Once I get the recommendation back from those people, I will bring those to all of you at the May meeting, and we will do the final approval for the grant. So obviously, we're going to have to do some trimming in that meeting with them to try to figure out how do we get it down to 250. Because we're only,
No, we did trim, not the.
well,
It's the left.
they will too, because they can't obviously recommend more than 250. So,
Right.
but you guys can obviously ask questions or whatever. But there, so that's on me, and I'll have that for you guys at the May meeting. But there will be some things we'll have to figure out there. We may have to go back to some of the programs and say, well, can you accept this amount? But
We
we're,
didn't just say, well, you accept this amount, we just say, this is what you got.
yeah, well, oh,
You do what you want to, and then-
Everybody,
I'm just telling you, you've done this so many years.
you've asked, as a group, you've asked for 38,000 more than we've got available.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna get cut a certain percentage. You gotta
What
make it
happens,
fair for
like,
everybody.
we just divide it up down the
we may
line.
just divide it up and
That's what,
tell them this is what you get. But
yeah,
it says in the application, we can only afford 250.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Well, I'm real disappointed. I contacted personally 2 different vocational schools in my area.
Yeah.
Told them about this, and they were unaware there was grant money out there, but that was about the 1st of March, and they didn't apply. That's what we got, I'm sad.
I know.
That's right. But I wanted them to, because I need.
Yeah, if you discuss that with them, you know. Sorry.
I think the North Central Career Center is in Clinton, is it Clinton or Leslie, somewhere up in that area, so they're not too far away from Scott. I think they get students from Leslie and
Yeah.
Clinton, Marshall,
You're right about that.
so they're new, so they did apply. They have applied with my knowledge. Yeah, so that's where we're at on those, and like I said, next time we need to have everybody here, because I will have all of those to bring to you to look at. We'll obviously send them out to you beforehand so you can look through everything. I will have the recommendations from skills development, career education, and Department of Higher Ed, all 3 of those have to make recommendations about this. So hopefully we can get that straight sometime. update on that, and next time we will approve those.
Oh, legislative.
Yes, today is the last day. Yep. Thank you. So the bills I've included in here are all the ones I thought were pertinent to kind of what we do here in the industry in general. And all the ones I have included, I've kind of got some notes on kind of their status. Obviously, we're at the end of the session today. So today is the last day that the House and Senate can vote on enacting, passing, forwarding this legislation. So the first one here, Mike Johnson and I talked about this earlier. The first one here is House Bill 1606. This is supposed to be on the House floor today to pass in full. There was an amendment that they made to it. They originally passed it already, but the Senate made an amendment, so they have to go back and pass it again. I think it will pass today, but I have no guarantee of that, obviously. But this one essentially is designed to allow local counties and municipalities the authority, if they want to allow UTVs on city streets and roadways. I understand why some people might want to do that. I don't really think it's a great idea, but I think it's going to pass. So just be aware that that will be an option, I think, going forward for local localities to vote on, I guess, to pass an ordinance to allow that to happen. And I know Michael said, I'm sure some of the resort areas and some rural areas probably want to do this for, tourism, and I'm sure other purposes to try to generate revenue, but, I could see some safety issues with this.
A lot of safety.
Kids and teenagers, I'm really happy about it. And
They got a pattern after what happens in some of these tribal communities in Florida.
yeah, so that's, and again, these are utility cat vehicles. So we've got, Michael knows what we're talking about it. He sells some of these things. So, I mean, some of these things are pretty dangerous.
Is there any requirement that they meet standards headlights, taillights, stoplights?
There are some requirements in here in terms of, I believe they have to have valid driver's license, insurance, maintain insurance on them. And then there are.
I see, there is a section.
Yeah, there's a section.
C.
Yeah.
Headlamps, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Rear facing turn signals, at least one brake light, and seat belts.
Okay.
So there are some requirements in there. I mean, they tried to, I think they tried to do the best they could, but. Again.
There's aftermarket companies that sell all the stuff to make any manufacturers side by side street legal. Because in a lot of your states, they are street legal. You get out to Mexico, Colorado. They're running them on the streets everywhere. Arizona.
So that moves on to the next one, House Bill 1688. So this is one of the, remember Greg was here last time and he's going over the dealer association's legislative package for the session. This is one of those bills framed by Representative Kavanaugh, obviously she's the dealer. And it has passed, it's at the governor's office at this point. So this is addressing the dealer plates. And if anybody wants to do some reading on why this came about, there's a case that went before the Supreme Court actually last year that kind of is the nexus for why this bill came about, to try to put some further clarity on dealer plates and who's an authorized user of dealer plates and that sort of thing. But I believe it was Trotter, Ford, and Pine Bluff. One of the Trotter dealerships was in a lawsuit with DFNA over this, and that's what.
And I will speak to this a little bit.
Yes.
What this bill does is, as near as I can tell, is it kind of puts what's been going on, it makes it legal. It doesn't give carte blanche on dealer tax, but there's still a lot of unauthorized use that needs to be dealt with. But this allows you to use dealer tax, and for managers and department heads of dealership, use dealer tags, and use them also for parades and other things like that, was the permitted way to do it until the law changed maybe 10 years ago. And they tried to make it much more restrictive, but this corrects some problems that they had. That really don't, it doesn't just mean that I can put dealer tags on everything in the world. Trying to avoid the situation that happened with Trump, yeah, and that. So it's a good bill. I don't have any problem with it.
And that brings us to House Bill 1834, which actually works in conjunction with 1688. It's also one of AAVA's legislative packages. And this actually affects our law specifically, okay? And essentially all it does is it adds a section to our 23-112-308 code section, which is the one that basically lays out all of the potential violations for the licensee that the commission, can take action on and potentially revoke or suspend somebody's license if they violate that section. So that adds a section to it. And the important part of this is at the bottom B, dealers extra license plate by an authorized or unauthorized user for any purpose other than permitted under the new law, basically. So that allows us to take action if someone is using the privilege for the transportation. So that's added to our law. Originally, this had a second section that Greg talked about last time about service and handling fees, but I think they were forced to take that out because
That's always been an issue.
it's always been something that, they were messing with the fee structure.
The way you said it.
So that's not in there. So this version you see here is the final version which passed, it's on, at the governor's office, so it will be back. Great. 1845 is also part of the AADA package. It's on the House floor today as well, and I don't, for an amendment, and I don't have any doubt that it will probably pass out because it's been fully supported the whole time so far. Could be surprised. This is the one that Greg was talking about that is trying to, I guess the best way to put it is modernize the registration, titling, and lien process to bring us into the digital age. So this is essentially, the best way I know to describe it is it's putting us on a framework and a pathway for DFNA to set up the electronic lien registration and titling system to fully integrate with the dealers to where dealers can then submit all of that electronically to DFNA and have all of that work. And Scott, if you want to speak into that, we can, but that's the way I understand it in the state.
It's always been, as long as I've been in the car business, it's been an issue in Arkansas because dealers were not allowed to collect sales tax or issue registration and licensing. And there was a get around that AADA had for a while, set a third party company that would handle this where dealers could do it, and charge a fee, and the customer did more go to the revenue office and do it themselves. But the main thing for the state is that sales tax will be collected and these cars will be properly registered at the time of sale. And the state will get their money and won't have people who buy a car, especially a lot of used cars. I see every day people running around with tent tags that are way expired. And that means they haven't been to the revenue office. They don't have a current tag and they hadn't paid sales tax, and the state's missing out on all that revenue. And so I signed, people include sales tax in their contracts when they finance cars. More often than not, I sign sales tax checks to DFNA on a daily basis on cars that we've sold where people want to include the tax. So this will just make it a lot easier. We'll have to remit it to the state. So as a dealer, we'll have another step that we'll have to go through. But I think that the state of Arkansas will be better off for coming into the digital age. And people won't have to go to the revenue office and stand in line. The consumer's going to benefit because it's going to streamline the process such that they can renew tags online. They can They cannot purchase the initial tag and pay the sales tax. And we're not allowed by law to collect it, which, in a way, takes the burden off of us, but as far as the state's concerned, it could cost them a lot of money. So I think it's a good thing.
Definitely streamlined. Hopefully they can.
Yeah, the way I understand it, and I may be wrong, but the way I understand it, it gives the Motor Vehicle Commission the right to recommend that it be done. We have some say in this stuff, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't read it in its final form, but that was something that I
think it's the, I think it's.
Okay.
The DFA office for vehicle perhaps. The office motor vehicle under DFA is one of the issues all.
it gives them permission to do it. It doesn't say they have to do it.
Yeah. It sets up the framework.
Yeah.
It sets them path. So, yeah, for them to set the system. Obviously, they'll have to, I'm sure, get a vendor to go through the whole process. All of it, so. HB 1960, the next one, that one has, been passed and it's at the governor's office as well. This is the other part of the AAPA package that Greg talked about, the leasing, vehicle leasing. So, I don't know, I haven't talked to him about this. I don't know if he got all the issues worked out with potential conflicts with the Constitution or not. We'll see. I mean, it's passed, so it's going to become law, but I don't know. I'll have to ask him if he suspects that some of the counties might challenge some of this. But basically it's, restructuring the leasing code to, kind of set Arkansas up to be more competitive as a leasing market with all the other states. Because right now Arkansas is basically at the bottom of the list.
So we're a non-leasing island.
Yeah.
Leasing. And something that's made this more important is most folks that acquire, I won't use for a purchase, but acquire an electric vehicle, do it through leasing. We've done more leasing this year than in years past, and it's all been EVs. And for lack of a better way to put it, the manufacturer is encouraging leasing of these EVs by using higher residuals and therefore lowering payments. And it also solves the problem of what do you do with the used EV when batteries are no longer around. And so leasing on that particular type of vehicle seems to be the most popular way. And in Arkansas, it's been very difficult because our retaining property tax and all that are different from everybody else. They are very difficult, especially.
That brings us to the last one, which is HB 1968, and this kind of was one that was touching on some of the stuff Scott was talking about earlier, tangentially, but this is about sales tax at the point of sale. Now, this is not going to be passed. It was referred to interim study, but it was introduced in this session. They referred it to interim study, so I would suspect they'll bring it back up in the 2027 session, and perhaps after refining it and trying to figure out the best way to do it. But this was essentially an attempt to move the point of sale collection for sales tax on new used motor vehicles to the dealer. So I think they were trying to model it after Texas. I'm not really sure, but I think they've still got some work to do to try to make sure that this is going to work.
And the way I understand this law,
Yeah.
as it's written here, it's not consumer friendly.
No.
And for that reason, it probably doesn't need tax because, right,
It would have put an undue burden on
Oh,
consumer.
yes.
The way it's written. So they've got some work to do to try to figure out how to make that work in the future.
So probably we've got 2 more years before we have to worry about this.
Yes, so it's in the interim study. It's not going to pass. We don't have to worry about it for now, but it's still important to you guys to know it's out there. It's something that some folks are interested in. So Okay. I think that brings us to our last little discussion item here. And so this is something I wanted to bring to your attention because obviously, as we've discussed, SB 94, now Act 233 has passed and will become law in August effectively, which that is the bill we discussed extensively last time that the legislature passed to allow retail stores basically to sell LFPs and ATVs without having service parts area on site and all the service providers that they can sign up for that. So I'm trying to plan ahead here and put this in front of you guys. Obviously, the best way I know is to explain like, so in ELP, in terms of LSV and cycle dealers, we don't have an ELP as it currently stands. We just have it as you're either a cycle dealer or you're an auto dealer. And that's how we differentiate the two. And then obviously, depending on what products you sell, that's how we know if you're an LSV dealer or motorcycle dealer, off-road dealer. Okay. But for the purposes of this new law, I feel like it's going to be important for us to designate, okay, because we are sectioning off now ATV and LSV dealers and saying, you don't have to provide a service on site, everyone else does. I think it's going to be important for us to have something in ELP to designate, okay, you're specifically an ATV or LSV dealer on the application itself so that we have a way of parsing that out. Because essentially, and this is where I get down into the bottom sections here too, where I'm talking about required warranty service provider list and that, go along with that. Because in that act, and of course we'll have some rulemaking later on we'll have to do, in that act, it sets out and mandates that these dealers have to provide the commission with a list of service providers that they're sending people to, warranty service provider or just regular service provider list. So we're going to have a mechanism to identify you're just an LSV or ATV dealer, number one, and number two, where's your service provider list? So we're going to have to set that up in fees where they can put that in the application. So really just wanted to get feedback from you guys on what you think that should look like, because we haven't had that before, obviously, in the system. So I'm going to have to get with IT and the ELP folks to figure out how do we build this into the application. So that's kind of the point of this section. Yes, sir. And so
Will we have the authority to create a separate kind of dealership? Yeah, license. We have auto dealers, new auto dealers, used auto dealers, and then cycle and power sports dealers. What type of license do you have?
I've got the motorcycle license, the ATV, UTV license. That's pretty much it.
The way we've always done it in the past is if you're a motorcycle or off-road dealer specifically, we consider you a franchise cycle dealer. Okay. If you're an auto dealer, you're a franchise auto dealer. If you're a commercial truck dealer, you're a commercial truck or RV dealer. If you're a now LSVs are a little different in that we define what an LSV is, an LSV dealer, but we have put them, if you're just going to sell LSVs, we put them as an auto dealer type because they're street legal vehicles and it's better for DFA if they're an auto dealer to register them.
No, sir, not all of them are street legal.
Well, but a lot of them will be licensed.
A lot of them will
Can
be.
Yeah.
But Scott, the thing about these low-speed vehicles that we're making a slot for, they don't fall under the same rules. The CSP, Consumer Safety Products Commission, doesn't have any jurisdiction over them. They're in my store looking to see that my hang tags are on, my decals are on. If we sell one to somebody, if I was selling one to you, they want to know the age of the child that it's going to, and it's got to be in that perimeter. They mistaken, I know of some dealerships that have been pulled because they sold it underage.
So, does somebody have to have a valid driver's license, so.
No, you got to be a minimum of 6 years old, and as we get, to a larger motor, we're gonna go 6 to 12 to 16. And 6, 10, and 12. Depending on the size of the motor and the speed of the thing. This is a real sticky thing for the commission to deal with. It's gonna be, I see with the low-speed vehicles that the discount stores are selling, somebody getting one, a child getting hurt, and here come the attorneys. And how'd this happen?
And they're gonna go after, I guess, that retail store.
Tractor Supply, Home Depot, Lowe's.
And this is what
Walmart, Sam's, Costco.
keeps us from having to go to Tractor Supply and say, where's your service part?
The bill that was just passed over here, which I was there, bought it personally. They have a service provider within 40 miles of the store.
That was another question I was gonna ask is, that surely they have to have one close by.
40 miles.
It's 40 miles for the section.
40 miles. If you went and bought one today, you have problems with it today, tomorrow, a week from now, you come back to the selling store. We'll use Tractor Supply. They were the ones that pushed the bill. They're gonna tell you, hey, we don't work on them here.
Yep.
Here's the guy, he's 38 miles away. You go see him. If you've got a warranty issue, if you need a part, replacement, maintenance, supplies, anything, you've got to go see whoever the independent service individual is. And I don't see how Margie or John or Daniel are gonna keep up with who's current, who's not. Because there's a lot of logistics to work out. If Gerald here want to be a service department for them, they've got to agree on the price, and any parts you're gonna stock, what's your hourly rate, what training are you gonna give me to fix these? Like your car dealership, we do online training, we have in-person training where I've got to ship the boys off for a week or several days and lodge them because it's just, I don't see how they're gonna pass it, but it passed over there with a bunch of power sports opposition.
Well, and
So
so,
maybe it's gonna become law.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be,
Yeah.
it's an act. So it'll be, in August, it'll be effective. So, and we will have, we'll have rulemaking over the next year. The way I understand it, BLR, legislative research has 60 days after the official end of the session, which is May, the thing is. So 60 days to produce a report to, on all of the enacted legislation that requires the, and then is when we get into the process.
So once that's done, if we're given permission to create a new, we'll have to be given permission to create a new
we will have,
type of dealer, I'll call.
well, we'll have to
No.
probably get a new,
License.
Well, that's what I mean.
we'll have to probably get rules for,
Right.
to enforce that new language. Yes, that'll be the full process. What I'm talking about here is specifically the license applications in the system. And some of the changes we'll have to make to accommodate this new structure, because we're essentially the way I look at it is the new law basically creates a new class of dealer where you have ATV and LSV dealers that don't require a service and parts area, and they have the service provider list they're also gonna have to provide, so it's a different set of, requirements for them than it is for everyone else. So the question before you today is, in terms of thinking about this, and there's not really anything to approve, I just wanted to bring it up on these two things that I put here: designation of ATV or LSV status and required warranty service provider list. Obviously, we're gonna have to know for our purposes when we license these people, okay, if you're just an ATV or LSV dealer, then this service and parts area requirement does not apply to you. unless you wanted to, like, you can still, under the law, you can still do it on site if you want to. That doesn't apply to you, but you also have to provide the commission when you apply or renew every year, a list of service providers that are active. And and part of that fleshing out will be that we're gonna have to flesh something out to determine, to make it a little clearer how that's gonna work. But for the applications themselves, I feel like we're gonna have to designate some type of status to these dealers to differentiate them from regular, just motorcycle dealers and, you know, that sort of thing. So there's a way in the system where we can basically add question forms to a regular cycle application to say, are you, and it's a required question, are you an ATV or LSB dealer? If they affirmatively say yes, well then we drop down, we can add a section that drops down the box of, okay, well, you know, what are your products, and please provide us with your service provider list on the application. Okay, is what I'm getting at.
And you don't have to have our approval to do that, you can just make that happen.
I can just do it in consultation with IT and ELP folks, but I wouldn't mind you guys saying that you're okay with us doing that as a staff, just so, because it is gonna require us to make changes to the application, so.
So do you have to wait till the rules are done to do this?
We may, I'm gonna,
I think
that's
you're gonna
something,
have to do that.
that's something I'm probably so, and I'm gonna talk to our attorney about it.
See
Maybe
if
talk to Michael
see if
about
we
it.
can get that moved to the.
Well, I just saw that you had asterisks by this, which.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there is one that I want you to approve today. That's the bottom one. We'll get to that in a second. The other two, we probably do need to wait because
Yeah, I was gonna say-
we don't know what the final rule is gonna be. That may affect certain things we do on the license too, so. But I wanted to bring it up for you guys to discuss because it is something we're gonna have to change. We're gonna have to.
Because you won't realize how many complaints and how many things this is
We
gonna
have to-
turn over for us. I'm just gonna tell you all this
Yes.
now.
Well,
It's gonna be,
yes, I can
Very
give
many.
you a specific example. We've already gotten, was it 11 different insurance certificates for Atwood? Was it
We did get those, but I think we get those every year.
Okay,
I do it specifically
Well-
for it. But we've already
we've already,
notated the people who we're
Yeah.
starting. will be.
we're gonna get a lot of applications. We're gonna get a lot of applications. And Marty and John are gonna be very busy
yes, they are,
later this year. I will say that.
we almost could probably hire, but a third person just take care of
I
this
can
stuff.
see us seeing a lot of office ATV and it's broken down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I think it's.
we're gonna get a lot of complaints.
And we-
too.
Yeah, we
Track
are.
that fly's gonna be a frequent flyer.
I've told Marty and John, we're gonna get a lot of applications from retail stores, but also we're gonna have to deal with this new law. It's gonna bring up people that probably aren't gonna meet the qualifications, but we're still gonna have to address them because they're gonna be taking this to mean that they can sell it out of their garage and stuff like that too. So
So
it's gonna be both ends.
it will be, and I don't think it's a thing like we have to come visit you before your building or your wherever, before we can give you.
Oh, this definitely, no, we're gonna.
You see what I'm saying? We need that maybe on the application form, in my opinion, before we can say, yeah, you're approved.
So it's staff, it's our policy that
Oh.
any new dealer that we have an application from and we've never licensed that location before,
We have to see.
Marty and John go visit,
Yeah.
inspect and make sure that they meet the requirements. We don't
We
issue
do
a
that
license.
anyway,
We do that anyway.
Okay.
That's
but I
fine.
could see us,
So,
And they don't have, they're not going to have those with particular dealer. But we recently had a dealer who wanted to move to a location that they were at years ago. And that was even one that we were like, we probably want to go check to see the new deal.
Yeah.
Or if anything happened.
but we almost check. I mean, that's
I thought you did, but I'm just saying that,
any new
that's
location.
gonna require a lot
Any-
of.
We learned our lesson with White River ATV.
Yeah.
Which
Oh, yeah.
before our time, but we do not.
Good old.
We do not issue any license without our dear John going and inspecting and taking all the pictures and making sure that everything is as it appears.
And they have does review all of our pictures.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
So,
He does.
but that's just something, I mean, you're right, Joy. We'll have to wait for the rulemaking to play out to see how we want it, but I can foresee some easy fixes in the system to try to track this. So I don't think it'll be an issue, but we'll see what happens. We have, I mean, because you know that
That's all I can do.
those, you know, public comment period, those directions, they're gonna be involved. They're gonna,
Yeah.
they're gonna be involved, you
Yeah.
know, so
They are.
we'll see. The last one on the list is the main one I wanted you guys to approve of, this is something that Alexis and I can do on our own and in consultation with IT. I think they have the ability to create this for us. So what we have seen is that our manufacturer distributors are not the best at keeping track of who's a current rep and who's not, and keeping us up to date on that. And it's kind of an honor system of them affiliating in the system who their reps are when they have them apply. So we want to, and there's nothing that prevents us from doing this, by the way, just out front. We want to add something before the next renewal period as a required document. And it's a real easy fix. It's something we can add really easily, but a required document on manufacturer and distributor renewal applications and initial applications in the system that requires them to upload a current representative list of all of their reps that are currently working in Arkansas. Because what we have seen over the last couple of years is, for the most part, people do a good job of keeping up with that, but then we have stragglers that come in and say, oh yeah, we just hired this person a couple months ago, or, you know, this person was working for the whole year, and then Alexis and I have to go in and, okay, we approved the license, but also you have license fees and late fees for the last year because you didn't let us know that this person was working. So this is a way to try to keep track of those people and head that off in the past, because if we have a required current list of all the reps, well, then when we don't get an actual application from said rep, we can follow up and say, well, what about this person? Because they haven't applied. And it makes it easier on us. But it's not something that we have really required before, but I think it's necessary in the new system to make sure we're keeping track of all these folks, and also make sure that, honestly, we're not missing out on revenues. We should get the license fees for people to be on us. So, that is something that I need approval from you guys to add, just because it's adding a form to the application in the system, but I think it's something that we need to do because we're basically kind of on a honor system at this point.
I've honestly had companies call and say, do you know who our reps are? And I go, I know who told me.
Well, that's my job, to keep up with who's working for each current employee. So that has happened. She's not joking, but, so.
It's usually when they have like a change in some candidate position, but I still get quite a few, what I deem as hilarious calls. I think these are my reps, can you tell me?
I think you should put strongly required.
Well, if we, just so you know, if we require it in ELP, it will not let them complete the application.
Okay, because I'm
Without
thinking,
putting it in there. So if we require it, they can't move on.
since we've never had to do that, we don't, okay, the consumer here.
Reps like with big companies like General Motors or Stellantis and Ford, are those reps, are they licensed? So every time
Until
for instance,
a new
we
name.
don't know, we don't necessarily always have to say General Motors.
They change every year.
Yeah, they change a lot, they move them around. And so when they do we get to collect new license fees, or we just change the name?
No, if it's a new person, they have to apply for a new license.
Oh, they do, so they can't go on the.
They can't go to somebody else's, yeah.
I got
So
it.
there's
The way it's set up in this person. Yeah. the way-
Right.
So the best way to explain it is, in the system, manufacturer and distributor reps are our only licenses that are a personal individual profile.
Got it.
All of the other profiles are business profiles, and that's an individual profile. So that's how we kind of differentiate them. But yeah, you can't have one rep on somebody else's profile because it is unique to that person.
Yeah, so my Chevrolet rep lives in Memphis.
Yeah.
And she is responsible for some Memphis dealers, some North Mississippi dealers, and some Northeast Arkansas dealers. So she would have to have a license for northeast Arkansas far from us, and I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
She might end up having to have 3 licenses.
Yeah, I'm sure she,
I had a representative last year that within a year and a half, she had been moved 3 times, but she was with us twice and not with us.
it's just something I've seen since we moved to the new system. It's a way that Alexis and I have come up with to fill in the cracks, because I know we have people that are slipping under the radar that probably are working, but we don't have any way of tracking these people. It's, again, it's kind of the honor system. This would force the manufacturer distributor to say, these are the people that are working in Arkansas. Okay, well, they need a license. You want a motion?
And
Well, go ahead.
one of the things we can do, similar to when a rep gets an authorization, we have a form that they fill it out and they can upload that same form. With us doing it like this, we can have it on a specific form that they upload, so it's all the same, which means we can require if they already have a license, like you have to put their license. If they don't have a license, somebody would need a blank, and we say, hey, this person needs a license, they don't even have a license.
Yep.
So it'd be easier for us to keep track of who has a license, who doesn't have a license, when was the last time they renewed their license. And we can make that form, so it's not something they're just sending in a list that they typed up on a Word document. It's personalized to them.
And is this equally applicable to both sales reps and service reps? Because in the automotive world, those are different.
We don't make that distinction.
Yeah.
We just, it's either a manufacturer rep or distributor rep, if they work for whatever the company.
So if it's a sales rep or a service rep, they're still got to be
Yeah,
licensed.
still gotta be, they're working in
They
our,
represent a manufacturer
or distributor.
or distributor, then they have to be licensed regardless of whether they're sales oriented or service.
If they're working and doing business in Arkansas and contacting dealers, no matter what capacity that is, if they are actively engaged in Arkansas, we consider that a rep.
Well, I know our service rep feels like a revolving door, like.
Yeah.
Seems to change about every quarter.
The statute is broad enough, the definition allows us to say, well, if you're working in business here, contact whatever capacity that is, service or sales. The only time I don't consider the rep is it's like an ad. State, like,
All in session.
yeah, but
I got you.
You want the dealer to report the reps to you?
no, not the dealer.
No,
Just-
yep,
just
just the
the
manufacturer.
manufacturer, distributor
Right.
on their application. So this would be a form we would add to the application as a required form, a list that they have to upload as a requirement for their license. Because these people work directly for them. Right, so, no, it's not the dealer's responsibility.
I will say, sometimes we have dealers who make it a little bit easier on us. They call with an issue and they go, I talked to Michael, and I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't
that's-
have a Michael listed.
That's fun, that does happen. Like, who licenses that person? Like, can we get their phone number? Yeah.
So
So,
missing out on some revenue.
yeah, we are, so this is the way of trying to. I will even, if we did this, if we approve the motion, I will even do a quantitative analysis of before and after to see how much we were missing out on for you guys next year. Once that happens. So, just.
So entertain a motion. To approve the
Motion to approve.
manufacturer, okay, second,
Carol, second.
moved and seconded for the manufacturers and distributors to provide required current representative list to Dalton Star Motor Business. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion.
Together. So. It's gonna be.
I don't know how long that's. gonna take. You're on legislature,
Yeah, 60 days after.
in 60 days.
After the session. It's appreciated.
Oh,
It's a long process.
that's a long time. Nothing else.
Sir, $2 bill in there.
Yeah, I'll fill you in once I get the word.
Oh.
Legal counsel here about.
Okay. All right. So we will be having a meeting.
Yes.
May the 21st
Definitely.
on the schedule.
What kind of surgery changed to the 27th? Surgery operates like it's just 30.
Okay. Because I don't think on the 20th,
Fuzzy.
it would be fuzzy. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Is it that is, we need,
All I together.
we need everybody here in that meeting. So, okay.
Do that, try to do that.
I'm going to motion for adjournment.
Scott Wood, I move we adjourn.
Jimmy Jones second.
Then moved in second, we adjourn the meeting. Arkansas Motor Vehicle Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Cynthia Thacker.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Recording stopped.
He's posted.